Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our job is to take complex, dense source material and, well, give you the intellectual shortcut, the insights, the context, and all the fascinating nuggets you need to be truly well-informed.
And today, we're on a very specific mission. We're exploring the foundations of the Unification Church, which is officially known as the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity, or HSAUWC.
Right, and here's the crucial part. We're doing this entirely through the lens of one single, pretty monumental source. And you have to understand, this isn't just a history book. That context is absolutely everything. Pack was, he was Sun Myung Moon's closest confidant.
Yeah, so this text is history, but it's interwoven with this incredibly deep religious devotion. The word for that is hagiography.
A biography that treats its subject as a saint.
Exactly, and it covers these pivotal years from the late 1950s to the mid-1960s. This is when the movement's theology really solidifies and its global ambitions are born, all in the middle of some pretty intense adversity.
So for this deep dive, you really need to see the world through Pack's eyes. Every event, every setback even, every success is presented as part of this unwavering divine plan.
Our mission here is to understand how this insider narrative really establishes Moon as the Lord of the Second Advent and the true Father, and how it cements the movement's identity as, globally destined.
Okay, so let's unpack the intellectual core of the movement.
Right.
At the absolute center is the divine principle, or DP.
Mm-hmm.
And Pack portrays this not as some human philosophy, but as the systematically organized living word that was revealed through Moon.
Right. It's designed to, in their view, complete the incomplete revelations of Christianity and really all previous ages. It's an entire cosmology.
Where does it start?
Well, the DP begins with the principle of creation. It teaches that God is the absolute being, but with dual characteristics.
Dual character.
Yeah, what they call Sungsang and Hungsang. You can think of it as corresponding to masculine and feminine, or internal character and external form. The idea is that the whole universe was created for one purpose, to achieve joy and true love through harmony.
That sounds pretty philosophical, broadly speaking. But where does the DP really stake its claim? Where does it get revolutionary?
That would be in its reinterpretation of the fall of man. This is really the aha nugget that sets unification theology completely apart.
Not just eating an apple.
Not even close. Pak spends a lot of time on this. Moon's teaching, as detailed in the DP, is that the fall was a spiritual and physical illicit relationship.
Okay, break that down for us.
The sequence is absolutely key. First, the archangel Lucifer, supposedly driven by spiritual jealousy, has a spiritual and physical relationship with Eve.
Wow.
Then Eve, who is still spiritually immature, has a premature physical relationship with Adam.
So a spiritual failure leads directly to a corrupted physical act.
Precisely. And that act corrupts the entire human lineage right at the source. It makes the stakes, infinitely higher than just disobeying an order about some fruit.
Yeah, because Peck argues that this established a fallen ancestry, right? It linked humanity to Satan's lineage instead of God's.
Exactly. And because the fall was physical, the restoration has to be physical too. And that brings us to the principle of restoration, the third major pillar.
And this principle, it covers God's efforts throughout all of human history. Peck outlines it through 3 different dispensations.
Yep, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and finally the completed Testament dispensations.
Which is the age that Moon is operating in.
That's the one. So the logic follows that if Jesus failed to complete his mission, specifically establishing a true sinless family because he was crucified, then God had to send a new Messiah.
And that new Messiah's core mission would be to establish the true family and become the true parent.
Because if the bloodline was corrupted physically, only a new, pure physical lineage, started by a perfected Adam and Eve, the true parents, could change humanity's ancestry from Satan's back to God's.
It's not just about spiritual salvation, then. It's literal generational restoration.
It's a whole different ballgame.
So if the divine principle is the intellectual framework, the next part of the story, the intense persecution, is really the dramatic validation.
It really is. Pak is explicit about this. The suffering that Moon and the early members faced in Korea is framed not as failure, but as a providential test, a fire meant for purification.
And they were facing huge headwinds in post-war Korea. What kind of opposition are we talking about here, according to Pak?
It came from literally every corner. First and most immediate was religious opposition.
From established churches.
Oh, absolutely. Pak documents this vehement rejection. They saw Moon's claims, especially about the fall and his own role, as just extreme heresy, blasphemy.
And that would lead to public condemnation.
Aggressive condemnation from the pulpit. It just destroyed the church's public reputation.
Which then spills over into social condemnation. I mean, if mainstream society sees you as a heretical cult.
Suspicion follows you everywhere. You see media sensationalism about their communal living, the fervor of the members, and of course, accusations of brainwashing.
And for the early members, this was devastating.
It meant being disowned by your family, losing your job, complete social isolation.
And then came the legal battles.
Yes. Pack chronicles Moon's repeated arrests, endless legal challenges. The charges range from draft dodging to illegal fundraising, social disruption.
But how does Pac explain this? How does he frame it?
Critically, he dismisses all of it as baseless fabrications. He argues it was a conspiracy, really, between jealous religious leaders and skeptical government officials.
So for someone on the outside reading this, how do you reconcile these constant setbacks, even imprisonment, with a divinely ordained mission?
And that is the absolute core of the hagiography. Pack depicts Moon as a kind of modern-day Job, a figure who suffers these profound injustices with dignity.
So the suffering isn't a sign of God's displeasure.
It's the opposite. It's proof of the movement's authenticity. Every arrest, every legal battle is seen as a necessary spiritual burden, mirroring the suffering path of the Messiah.
And the followers' resilience.
Their unwavering loyalty, their sacrifices, that's all framed as the blood of the martyrs, which spiritually validates the whole movement. It's proof that they're protected by providence.
So with the theology built and the movement, in their view, purified by all this persecution, Pac moves to the pivotal moment of lineage restoration.
Yes. This all centers on the blessing ceremonies, specifically the groundbreaking marriage blessing of the 36 couples in 1961.
This wasn't just a big wedding.
No, not at all. It was a cosmic event, totally central to their theology. Remember, the fall corrupted the lineage. The blessing, which was administered by Moon and his wife, Hak Jahan, was the theological mechanism to literally cut off that fallen satanic bloodline.
And then connect the participants to God's true lineage.
Exactly.
So Moon and his wife, the true parents, are seen as having reached that perfected, sinless standard that Adam and Eve failed to achieve. Their marriage sets the template.
And their blessing confers that pure lineage onto others. It's an incredible concept. And Pac really emphasizes the sacrifice required.
How so?
These couples were often chosen by Moon himself. They were marrying people they might have just met. It was about transcending your own personal romantic preference for a higher providential purpose.
That's a radical reversal of how most of us think about marriage. It puts this spiritual mandate completely above personal feelings.
It does. And this willingness to sacrifice individual choice for the collective restoration of God's purpose is held up as the highest form of dedication.
And Pop stresses that these blessed families were meant to be the seeds of a new humanity.
That was the idea. The mandate was to go on and raise children who were free from original sin, setting the practical, material foundation for God's kingdom on earth.
So the goal of salvation moves out of the purely spiritual realm.
And gets planted firmly in the physical, familial realm. The family itself became the proving ground for the divine principle.
Once those foundations were secure in Korea, Volume 2 shows this immediate shift to global ambition.
And Pac makes it really clear this wasn't some strategic plan from a committee. It was a direct command from God to fulfill Moon's universal vision.
And the stories of those first missionaries are truly intense. You read about young Eun Kim, who was sent to the USA, and saying Ik Choi to Japan.
They were real pioneers, just thrown into these incredibly challenging environments with basically no safety net, no money.
The source material is just full of these stories of extreme hardship.
It is. These missionaries faced huge cultural barriers, profound loneliness, and often they lived in just abject poverty. Pac talks about them living on the streets, surviving on almost no food.
But every small victory, every first convert, is treated as this monumental step in God's plan.
It is. It's presented as proof that faith can overcome any material deficiency.
What's fascinating is Moon's specific focus on certain countries. According to Pac, why was Japan so important right from the start?
Well, Moon often referred to Japan as the mother nation in their providential plan, with Korea being the father nation.
Okay, what does that mean?
It meant Japan had a specific spiritual responsibility towards Korea, so a strong missionary presence there was essential. It basically embeds the geopolitical relationship between the two countries right into the spiritual narrative.
This kind of intense missionary drive needs a very particular kind of leader. What stands out to you about Moon's leadership style in this period, based on Pack's account?
Pack's closeness to him reveals this multifaceted leadership. On one hand, Moon was the tireless teacher. He was known for lecturing for 6, 8, even 12 hours straight, often late into the night,
Wow.
just expounding the details of the divine principle. But at the same time, he was the stern disciplinarian, a spiritual commander. He demanded absolute, total dedication and sacrifice.
So a mix of compassionate spiritual father and a rigorous military commander.
I think that's a good way to put it. And underneath all that spiritual drive was a deep pragmatism. Pack details the need to establish a material base for the mission.
You can't run a global mission on prayer alone.
Exactly. This meant setting up these very Spartan communal centers, and it was the very beginning of their industrial and economic ventures. Small factories, businesses, anything to fund the church's expansion. He understood you need economic independence.
Okay, so we have to put all of this on the larger historical stage. Post-war Korea, height of the Cold War, Pack places Moon's mission right in the middle of this global struggle.
He absolutely does. In Pack's view, Korea wasn't just some random country, it was the chosen nation.
Chosen nation.
Its painful division, all its suffering, was interpreted as a direct reflection of humanity's fallen state. It was designated as the crucial global battlefield in the cosmic struggle between God and Satan.
And that framework gives this incredible theological weight to Moon's most defining political stance, his fervent anti-communism.
Yes, and Pak emphasizes that this is defined theologically, not just politically. Moon saw communism as a satanic ideology.
Because it promoted materialism and atheism.
And, in his view, it was fundamentally designed to destroy God's family ideal. It was the ultimate manifestation of Satan's will on earth.
So his efforts weren't just about winning a political debate. They were about creating a whole counter-ideology.
Precisely. This is what led to the creation of the anti-communist movement known as Victory Over Communism, or VOC, and it was rooted directly in the divine principle.
So Pak presents the Unification Church and Moon as this spiritual vanguard.
The only ones capable of defeating the forces of atheism because they believed they possessed the complete truth needed for world unification. It's a grand synthesis. Every national event is interpreted as part of God's plan, with Moon as the only one who can decipher the signs.
Guiding humanity towards world peace through a spiritual unified vision.
To really synthesize Volume 2, Pak just meticulously constructs this image of Sun Myung Moon as an indefatigable leader with true messianic authority.
It's all about laying the foundations.
The core theology, the organizational structures, the first pure families, the missionary zeal. But the enduring takeaway is the lens. It's all viewed through this filter of unwavering devotion.
Where every single tribulation is just more proof of your divine mandate.
Yeah, and that narrative is so powerful. It demonstrates how persecution, far from being a deterrent, became a tool for profound spiritual validation for the followers.
It gives meaning to the extreme personal sacrifice that was demanded of them.
It creates an almost unbreakable internal logic. If you truly believe your suffering validates your mission, then setbacks aren't failures. They're just necessary steps toward a guaranteed ultimate victory.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to consider. If a religious movement frames its persecution and hardship as definitive proof of its divine mandate, how does that perspective fundamentally change the calculus of success and failure for its adherents? And what limits does that place on any kind of external critique?
It's a powerful defense mechanism, really, built right into the foundation of the story. A fascinating dynamic that explains so much about what came next.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the foundational years of the Unification Church, drawn directly from Colonel Bo, Hypox Messiah, Volume 2. We'll catch you next time.